In the year 1993, the legendary Doom was released. It is widely considered one of the most important games of all time, and arguably the best FPS ever made. And then, 23 years later, in 2016, the legendary Doom was released. It is widely considered one of the most important reboots of all time, and arguably the best FPS ever made.
So how do you follow up on a series that has had two legendary gaming milestones? Hello and welcome, I am Zerbraxi, part-time Doom guy, part-time unicorn breeder, and we are going to talk about Doom Eternal, the game that came out on the same day as Animal Crossing, and while that sounds stupid for many of us, it's created a time problem of wanting to compete with both. So today, let's talk about Doom Eternal, how it lives up to its predecessors, and how maybe we can finally answer the question, is hell good for you? Let's find out.
Doom Eternal is a beautiful mashup of metal music, ultraviolence, and lots of bullets. Having to live up to the hype left behind by Doom 2016 is no easy feat, and overall, Eternal manages to live up to the hype and exceed 2016 in many ways. Right out of the gate, there is going to be a noticeable change this time around. A real plot exists. In Doom 2016, the plot could essentially be boiled down to, you're on Mars, go to hell. An offensive phrase to some, but an exciting invitation to those bloodthirsty demon-worshipping gamers out there. Doom Eternal, on the other hand, has a bit more going on, yet nothing all that exciting. Doom Guy, or the Doom Slayer, is attempting to save the Earth from the demon invasion by slaying all of the demon priests. The priests aren't happy because they're dying brutal deaths, and their leader, the Khan Maker, also doesn't like the fact that their pets are dying brutal deaths. The Khan Maker is trying to stop the Doomslayer from saving humanity because the human race needs to die essentially as sacrifice to serve as a balanced cycle. There are significantly more details that I'm leaving out here, especially if you consider the plethora of lore pickups throughout the campaign. However, to be quite frank, I honestly just didn't care. I really do try to focus on a story even if I'm uninterested, because I'm hoping that the narrative will come together and I can objectively view the end result as a whole. Doom Eternal's main plot does a lot to add context and lore behind the demons, the human war, and the Doomslayer's origins, yet I never once asked for these questions to be answered, ever, when playing a Doom game, and I realize now that it's because I never once cared. Everything that gets revealed here is cool on one hand, while also completely unnecessary on the other. For example, Eternal starts to really dig into the backstory of the Doomslayer. We're talking about things like his personality, his violent tendencies, his first interactions with the Sentinels, the demons, and more. All of this is really cool, and the missions behind this allow for some incredible fights to play out with some of the best level design in an FPS ever. But having all this lore behind the Doom Guy also removes so much of the mystery and the silent protagonist immersion that essentially exists within this franchise. For the past 20 plus years, I have been the Doom Guy myself during my playtime. Yet now, the Doom Guy is his own character, with details that mean I'm no longer the face within the helmet. It's just some guy who's obnoxiously obsessed with blood and murder. While this doesn't ruin the experience anyway, the additional details I feel do more to serve as filler to answers the players never asked, rather than serve as an expansion for the world of Doom.
And now I want to give Doom Eternal an insane amount of praise. I've really struggled on trying to convey my feelings here about the gameplay, the soundtrack, and the level design, and it's not because I don't have much to say or because I can't kind of convey those feelings and those words, but it's mostly because it's really hard to talk about one and not all of them at once because they're so well together. This game is just awesome. Let's keep going.
To prove my point about how well integrated everything in this game is, let me show you by just trying to talk about level design in Doom Eternal first. The environments are claustrophobic, expansive, and creative when they need to be. Most importantly, they allow for the player to move around freely in all sorts of directions. All of this freedom to be aggressive works specifically because the gameplay provides so much damn speed in everything. Movement is faster than it's ever been, and the satisfaction is mostly felt because of the soundtrack. Mick Gordon returns to write another visceral and fist-pumping soundtrack that forces the heart to pump intensely every moment you're playing. The synergistic behavior between these three designs, level design, gameplay, and audio, is so beautifully crafted together it's almost ironic that they're so intricately woven in a game revolving around ripping and tearing demons apart. Whenever you're in a given area engaging in the combat, everything becomes your playground. Considering Doom is an arena shooter at heart, and its single player has always felt as such, This is never once a detriment to the title. In fact, it's an example of how perfect the design to Doom back in the 90s really was. Eternal runs with this design and provides you with a constant string of new arenas to slaughter demons in. Every bit of combat always makes me feel like I was cleaving apart the spawns of hell inside of an obstacle course. Jump pads, barriers, portals to run through, the dash mechanic, the almost perfect weapon variety, and the songs in the background all make it physically impossible to be bored while shooting a gun in Doom Eternal. Within the levels, the environment feels like a pendulum as it benefits the enemies and their capabilities in some respect, yet depending on how you move and manipulate your place in the level, you can metaphorically wield your surroundings as a weapon itself to better massacre the oncoming hellspawn. Just like the bridge of a song, the platforming and puzzle sections also serve as a great break between combat. While games like the PS2 God of War titles are hindered by its puzzle sections, Doom Eternal mostly does them as well as titles like Bayonetta. Platforming in Doom is elementary, silly, or intense. Eternal does all three, and most of the easy sections end up being the boring ones as well, unfortunately. Thankfully, I can say that they don't happen often. But when they do, the game does feel like it stops to a screaming halt and the immersion genuinely breaks. It isn't that easy is bad, but several platforming sections require almost no thought or mechanics, thus essentially existing for the sake of existing, and nothing more. Now, the puzzle and platforming section placements throughout the game are sublimely paced, and they do let you catch your breath at just the moment you need it most. When these sections also embrace their silly or intense nature, I actually find these moments incredibly enjoyable. Doom 2016 had these breathable moments as well, but they went for a more atmospheric breakup in action. Whether you prefer the atmosphere versus the gameplay approach is up to you, but the fact Eternal tried something different is really appreciated. Something else I also appreciated is that the gameplay is just as phenomenal as ever. As lame as it might sound, I was actually making grunting noises when playing through Doom Eternal. It is great. There isn't an action that you take in the game that doesn't feel impactful. Of course, this reaches to gunplay. Without question, Doom Eternal's guns are the best feeling weapons I've ever experienced in a video game. Even more impressive is the different weapons' ability to feel so different from one another as well. All of the guns have their unique firing styles, these moments of value and gameplay intricacies that can be taken advantage of in every scenario. Hell, the shotgun and the super shotgun, both shotguns, but feel nothing alike in how you utilize them. Again, this is enhanced by the level and audio design, which further exemplifies the mastercraft of Doom Eternal's development team. Another illustration of incredible design would be the Triforce of Glory Kills, the Chainsaw, and the Flame Belcher. I praised Eternal's exceptional pacing earlier in the video, and this trifecta of tools is further proof that id Software are geniuses of pacing in video games. In Doom, you should only ever stop when the moment for a breather is necessary. During the action, it's important that the player is constantly firing weapons and engaging in the attempted genocide of the demon race. Therefore, it's important that your resources are constantly available, and Doom Eternal puts that possibility into the player's hands. The primary resources to manage in Doom will be your health, ammo, and armor. Through the use of Glory Kills meleeing an enemy when they're low on health, you'll perform a awesome brutal kill and heal yourself when it completes. If it's ammo that you need, then you can use a chainsaw to horrifyingly mutilate demons into pieces and to generate ammo for all different types of weapons. And new to Doom Eternal is the Flame Belcher, this shoulder-mounted flamethrower that allows you to set demons ablaze. While demons are on fire, they will continually spew armor pickups, and killing them while ablaze will make them explode into a beautiful, bloody shower of armor. So when it comes to combat, you never once have to stop. Ever. There were a couple moments, and I quite literally mean maybe two, where I ran out of everything and was just running to survive. But for full honesty, these moments were completely my fault. I didn't utilize the mechanics made available to me, and I never once blamed the game for these moments. It's kind of like dying in Super Meat Boy, where you fully accept it was your fault and not the game. That is a sign of truly exquisite game design. Upgrades are plentiful and awesome. Unfortunately though, armor upgrades don't really feel like they change gameplay that much this time around. There are a couple that do, like the upgrade to reset your dash upon a glory kill, but most just increase damage to frozen enemies or allow you to resist radiation more. This is something that Doom 2016 beats Eternal in, as suit upgrades felt like they had way more impact. I ended up playing through Doom 2016 a couple weeks before Eternal came out, and this is definitely something I noticed right away. The weapon upgrades also don't feel quite as good as 2016's. The smaller unlocks are mostly passive again, and do almost nothing to shake up gameplay. That is, until the final unlock of the weapons, the Masteries. These require you to do very certain things, like kill the Pinky Demon with the full auto shotgun mod, or kill 75 demons with a headshot with the assault rifle. These masteries are complete game changers, and many of them blow the Doom 2016 masteries out of the water. The best and most fun by far, thank you Randy, is the Super Shotgun Mastery. This upgrades your chain hook on this weapon to also set the target on fire. Not only is this more damage, but the fire means that you'll generate armor upon killing any enemy. This changes the Super Shotgun from just an offensive powerhouse to also a defensive and tactical weapon as well. In Doom Eternal, everything is overpowered, and this is a perfect example of that philosophy at work. Finally, let's talk about the soundtrack. Doom Eternal soundtrack is awesome, ferocious, and atmospheric. There wasn't a single bad track throughout my time playing through the game. Every hallway I walked down, every moment of combat, every little action I performed sounded better than I could have ever imagined. Slaying demons to metal will never get old. Composer Mick Gordon has done an incredible job with games like Killer Instinct, but I believe his status as a legend will be associated with the masterpieces he has made for the Doom games. What's even more impressive is that Doom Eternal also has some of these really cool tracks where a choir is singing alongside these intense instruments. You can watch videos on how he assembled his heavy metal choir, as he calls it, and man, I just never thought this is something that I really wanted, but it's really awesome. Mick Gordon is quickly climbing that ladder of legends, and I wouldn't be surprised if his name shows up to people like Jeremy Soule, Koji Kondo, or Nobu Uematsu as far as rivals in the upcoming years. I do have one gripe with the soundtrack, but I must express that this is an issue strictly as a matter of taste rather than objective criticism. I mentioned a couple times that the music is atmospheric, and that is true, but it comes at a cost. Doom Eternal soundtrack is awesome, but I'd be lying if I said it's memorable. The difference is that Doom 2016 soundtrack really hits a lot of old school video game tropes with catchy melodies and memorable patterns. This has turned Doom 2016 album into something that I've listened to regularly over and over again on its own. Songs like At Doom's Gate, Rip and Tear, BFG Division, Flesh and Metal, these are all constant repeated listens for me because they are just as catchy as they are exciting. Eternal has incredible songs, and even catchy memorable ones like the track The Only Thing They Fear Is You. That track is epic every time it comes on, and I've listened to it on its own quite a bit. However, I finished the game and listened to the Doom Eternal soundtrack over a handful of times from start to finish now. Unfortunately, it's just not as good to listen to on its own as the 2016 album. Again, I need to reiterate that this is definitely something that's because of a different style and goal. I'd say that Doom Eternal does a better job of creating immersive music, while Doom 2016 does a better job of creating memorable music. Very different styles with very different goals, but I really needed to convey this as I know how important the music is for these new Doom games. There is still so much about Doom Eternal I want to talk about, like how good the Slayer levels are, and just so much more. Overall, Doom Eternal is a masterful follow-up to one of the best shooters ever made. Eternal sets itself right on the pedestal of masterpieces and is the easiest Game of the Year contender I've played in quite a while. Even my friend Randy, who's been on this channel a bunch and he helps a ton with my videos, has had a thoroughly awesome experience with the game. I've genuinely not heard him talk so excitedly about a title in quite some time, and he finished it the weekend it came out. This decade is only just beginning. I mean, we are 3 months in, and we already have a possible Game of the Decade contender. That's insane. And I'm not just trying to overhype it, I genuinely believe that Doom Eternal is the best FPS I have ever played in so many ways. I can't wait to see what comes. This is one of the best experiences I've had in a very long time, and one of the most legendary shooters you will ever play. I'll see you next time.